That was Eleanor. Joining me now in the studio, Dia Chakravarty, Political Director at the Taxpayers Alliance, who are against any of the parties trying to impose a mansion tax. What's wrong with people who can afford expensive houses paying a...
The problem with taxes, any tax really, is that they start off by being relevant to just the very, very rich at the very, very top. And this is what politicians will tell you, not just Ollie's party, but politicians of every stripe. But taxes always creep down. If you look historically at income tax, started during the Napoleonic Wars, and now, most recently, stamp duty. It affects houses that only cost about £125,000, which almost buys you nothing in London these days. So it's very important to remember that. But add to that, Andrew, the fact that in the UK, we already have some of the highest property tax rates in the OECD. It's twice the OECD average. It's 4.2% of our GDP in the UK. It's 0.9% in Germany. Combined with that, it's another tax on ordinary taxpayers, which we really can't afford.
Why is it a tax on ordinary taxpayers, though? If you own a house worth more than $2 million. In London, that may not necessarily make you very rich, but you're pretty affluent.
Well, let's look at it.
Are you saying that if they could come up with a way that ring-fenced the tax only for the well-off, you'd be in favour of it?
Couple of things there. In 2013, house prices went up by 8.4%. Wages didn't go up by that ratio at all. Secondly, it doesn't affect the problem of people having a property but not being cash rich, as it were. So if you were a widow, for example, and you were left with a house that happened to cost that much, or you bought a house 20 years ago, it's now $2 million, you don't have the money to pay those taxes. It does affect ordinary people.
You can defer the payment. You can defer the payment.
And how
until the house changes hands, you can defer the payment.
And then you're having yet another tax on top of what inheritance, if the widow's died, for example, in my example.
Are you seriously saying that where the council tax stops, and I know this is different from the council tax,
yes,
at 320,000,
yes,
that is fair at the moment? Are you seriously saying that that's fair?
What you mean is...
If you've got a house worth $5 million...
Let me just explain. What she's saying is it fair you should pay the same tax if you're sitting in a house compared to someone who's sitting in a house worth $10 million? Because at the moment it is the same tax.
It's exactly the same at the moment.
We don't think council tax is fair in that sense, because again, you could have a
property
property
would you do about
that you bought. Well, you had a property. Well, like we said, there's nothing to be done about property taxes other than scrapping some of these ridiculous taxes, because we already are ridiculously taxed when it comes to property in this country.
And how would you pay down the deficit if you did that?
Oh, where do we even start? We've got plan after plan.
No, let's not go to the deficit. Let's just stick.
The public sector.
Let's just stick to the mansion tax. Do you accept?
Not at all.
Do you accept that local government taxes, as we have them at the moment, based on a 1991 property valuation, which is like another age compared to property prices now, especially in the south, is unfair?
And that is precisely the point. Valuation is a massive point. We saw ministers not being able to answer, because I felt sorry for Danny Alexander. There's no way that this has been thought through either. We just don't know how it's going to be valued.
Do you? Because, I mean, I certainly couldn't get answers from Labour or the Lib Dems on exactly how they would go about determining what homes were worth more than $2 million and what they were worth.
And I saw you interview several people last week, and I recognised the frustration in your question.
So can you relieve my frustration?
I can't come here and answer more than Danny Alexander can right now.
But he didn't answer the question.
What I can tell you
So you don't know?
No, but we will. So obviously, we have to work that out.
How do you know then that there would be an exemption for people who are asset rich but cash poor? How do you know that if you don't know what the valuations is?
I just do know that that is a possibility.
Well, does it just come through the air and tell you? Is it just mysteriously comes from nowhere?
I understand that.
So again, Andrew, I mean, maybe I can help, Ollie. Intentions are often noble. The point is, these are not done properly. We don't have always the information that we need to do to go through with this. So the valuation, it's a complete nightmare. They don't know how they're going to value the houses, yet they're quite that kind of sound nice, and hey, we've got an election.
No, it's not because it sounds nice. I mean, that kind of massively trivialises what we're trying to do here. And what we're trying to do is ensure that there is absolute fairness in the system, and people who are super, super wealthy are able to take some of the burden. We disagree about their, kind of cutting, and that being the only way, because that means schools close, and that means care homes close.
Let's get rid of things like IPSA, for example. There are lots of ways that we can make savings. And
Andrew, if you want to ask about the waste question, because you've already cross-examined that, and you know that that is possible, and that every effort will be made to do that, but at the same time, as Vince K timetable said anyone who goes into this election saying they can pay down the deficit without in some way raising taxes, and we think it should be
fair. Yeah, but you've not told us how to raise the taxes. Other than the mansion tax, which was valuation
tax that we talked about last
week. But the problem with capital gains is you've already raised capital gains by 10 points, and capital gains revenues have slashed in half. There is no guarantee that a higher CGT rate will actually produce more revenues. Indeed, the evidence from the past 4 years is it produces less revenue.
Well, at the moment...
Do you want me to give you the figures?
No, yeah, I saw you do it last week, Andrew, very effectively.
Myself. But let me come back to this fundamental. I mean, you say we pay a lot on property taxes. I'm not so sure. I've seen these OECD figures. I think they're slightly dodgy myself. Property taxes overall compared to London compared to New York. I can assure you that New York property taxes are far higher than London.
But Andrew, think about this. A young couple trying to scrape a deposit for £125,000, right, to buy a flat. 1% of that is a massive burden on them.
Well, that's a stamp duty.
That's stamp duty. So that's exactly what I'm saying. That's one of the property taxes that I'm talking about.
They won't pay the mansion tax.
But but that's what I'm talking about. Stamp duty was introduced as something that would only affect the very rich. It was said over and over again, it would only affect the very rich. Has come down. That's precisely my point. It might start off with affecting just the very rich. It will creep down. It will affect people like me, ordinary people.
You have to start off by raising tax from people who have the broadest shoulders, because the alternative is that you cut services for working poor.
Let's cut out the waste and let's not raise taxes.
Let's leave it there. I have a feeling you two are not going to agree. I mean, I may be out on a limb saying that, but